Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this Horizon Europe Marie Skłodowska-Curie Actions Doctoral Network Call Information event. Let me first introduce shortly myself. I'm Audrey Arfi. I'm Head of Sector in the MSCA Doctoral Network Unit in the European Research Executive Agency, and I have the pleasure and the duty also to take this short question to know a bit where you're from and who is watching us today. And just before going and starting this session, I would like also to mention that in case you have any technical issues on the platform following this event, you have also the link to the web to the
from the European Commission. On behalf of the European Research Executive Agency in Brussels, I would like to welcome you to this information event on the 2024 call for proposals for doctoral networks under the Marie Skłodowska-Curie Actions. The objective of this morning's event is simple. We want to inform you as potential applicants and as stakeholders about the requirements of the fourth doctoral networks call in Horizon Europe that has been opened on the 29th of May. I would like to welcome in particular the MSCA national contact points to this information meeting. Thank you very much for your presence. You play an essential role in supporting applicants and in guiding the MSCA beneficiaries throughout the implementation of their project. I would also like to extend our welcome to the colleagues from the European Commission, namely to Claire Morel and to Sohail Luka from the MSCA Policy Unit at the European Commission's Directorate General for Education, Youth, Sport and Culture. The information event this morning comes at a very good point of time. The call was launched only 10 days ago, with a deadline for the submission of proposals on the 27th of November. I'm glad to say that all relevant documents have been published on the funding and tender portal, including the work program, the submission forms and the guide for applicants. So, as potential applicants, you have all the elements at your fingertips to prepare and to submit a high-quality proposal that can ultimately be funded. To start, let me first of all welcome back to Horizon Europe and to MSCA our colleagues and friends from the United Kingdom. As you certainly know, the UK has become an associated country under Horizon Europe as of the 1st of January 2024. As a result, institutions from the UK will for the first time under Horizon Europe be fully eligible to participate in applications and also in projects for doctoral networks. This will make the European research family stronger, and it will make the Marie Skłodowska-Curie Actions even more impactful. The doctoral networks continue to be the flagship component of MSCA. With the association of the UK to the programme, the available budget for this year's call has increased by 1/3. We have gone from €456 million in 2023 to a total of €609 million in 2024 for projects that will be contracted in spring 2025. With this budget of €609 million, we expect to fund over 160 doctoral networks, which, in line with the bottom-up character of the action, will span all scientific fields and areas. We expect to contribute to the training and the skills of more than 2,400 doctoral candidates. Under the first three calls for proposals for doctoral networks in Horizon Europe, we received approximately 1,100 proposals per call. The take-up with substantial stability between last year's edition and the call that we are promoting today. The maximum grant size still stands at 540 person-months per project, as it used to be the case under Horizon 2020. For joint doctorates, given the particular complexity of this implementation mode, the maximum fellowship duration will remain at 48 months, with an overall project duration of 60 months. One important novelty for this year's call concerns the unit costs for the living and for the mobility allowance for the fellows, which has been increased by 18% to compensate for the inflation and to make sure that the program remains attractive. The agenda of the information event today is relatively straightforward. We will present to you the specificities of the 24 Doctoral Networks call, with a particular emphasis on the few novelties and underlining once more also the incentives for the joint and for the industrial doctorates. The second part of the information event will feature a Q&A session. You already had the opportunity to ask questions through Slido in advance of the event, and you will have the further opportunity to ask your questions this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your attention. I wish you a very fruitful information event and hope to see many of you involved in the preparation of excellent project proposals for the doctoral networks. Audrey, over to you again.
Thank you, Klaus, for this very warm welcome, and thank you for also this nice introduction and giving you already an overview of today's event. So I would like to remind you that we have opened a very short poll with very few questions, 3 questions actually, that I really invite you to take just to know more about you who are behind the screen today with us. So in case you have already some experience with doctoral networks or not, what kind of entities you're representing. I can already see that we have many more participants connected and connected to Slido in particular. So you can join at slido.com using the hashtag DN2024 or the QR code appearing on the screen. Of course, I invite you also to continue submitting all your questions that you may have on the DN2024 call. And you can use Slido for this using the QR code. Just let me also mention that we will try our best to reply to most of your questions today in live. But of course, in case of 2 specific questions, we may reply and answer only in writing to make sure to address all aspects of your questions. And please also have a look at all already submitted questions, not to duplicate them too much. So don't worry as well, because in case we cannot reply to all questions submitted today, we will make sure to publish all answers to most frequent questions, and we will publish all those answers on the event platform together with the slide and presentation that you will be hearing today. So now let me introduce the next speaker, who is Claire Morel. She's a head of unit of the MSCA policy unit in the European Commission's Directorate General for Education, Youth, Sport and Culture. And Claire, she will give us a short introduction as well, and some more policy background on the MSCA and doctoral networks in particular. Claire?
Thank you, Audrey. And good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome, and thank you for participating in today's event. The Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions are the main instrument at EU level to develop, to attract and to retain talent in research and innovation. And it's a program that has a substantial positive impact on the career path of individual researchers, on the participating institutions, and on the European research and innovation sector as a whole. The program has 5 complementary actions, and one of them are the MSCA doctoral networks that have been designed in a way that they foster excellence, they promote international, intersectoral and interdisciplinary mobility and cooperation, and they prepare fellows to be accomplished researchers who are fit both for the academic but also for non-academic careers. And these features were introduced by design in order to achieve wider strategies of the European Union in terms of competitiveness, sustainability, equity, and international cooperation. So accordingly, the project that we fund should play a crucial role as building blocks toward achieving those strategies, while at the same time advancing knowledge in all the fields, thanks to the bottom-up nature of the MSCA that does not target any particular research field. So MSCA is really open to all excellent research areas. So like all Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions, doctoral networks projects must reflect the principles which the MSCA stands for, like fair, transparent recruitment, transferable skills, career development, open science, equality, inclusion, and building sustainable links amongst research and innovation partners within Europe and beyond, because the program is really completely open to the world. In addition, one notable feature of the doctoral network is the extensive involvement and the close integration of the non-academic sector. So let me, in this context, highlight one of the most strategic benefits of the MSCA Doctoral Network, what we call the structuring impact. Here we're talking about the positive impact of MSCA that last and that are maintained beyond the lifetime of the project. And this is the impact on the academic and non-academic organizations that are involved in widely spreading excellence and setting standards for high-quality training programs at doctoral level. So this positive impact that the participation in MSCA can bring in terms of attractiveness and international visibility for the organizations that are participating in MSCA. As you might know, we always try to improve our MSCA Doctoral Network action from year to year. We are trying to make it more strategic, and we're trying to provide more flexibility and simplification. Every year we receive inputs from project partners, from national contact points, and from the member state representatives, and we update our MSCA work program. The work program is the legal base to organize our calls for proposals. Because we are determined to maintain our MSCA Doctoral Networks program scheme as one of the best and the most strategic in the world. So this is the fourth Horizon Europe call for doctoral networks. And I can say that what you are seeing now is the doctoral networks at its best. So since the first call in 2021 under Horizon Europe, we have introduced a number of improvements, all of which you will find in this year's call, and that my colleague will present to you throughout the morning. Amongst them are two very important incentives introduced last year, namely increasing the grant size for standard doctoral networks and increasing as well the duration of joint doctorates by an additional year. And this is really something that came from stakeholders and that we've decided to apply. So as of this year's call, it will be possible as well to have the joint or multiple degrees awarded by a university from a non-associated third country together with a university from an EU or associated country, so only one partner. This means that, for example, it will now be possible to have a joint doctorate between a university in an EU in the EU with a university, for example, in Japan or the United States of America, which was not possible in the past. So this is really a simplification measures that we've introduced. So therefore, we are quite interested and very excited about the doctoral network call this year, and I hope that you will also feel the same after the rich information discussion session which are planned this morning. And on behalf of the European Commission, I thank you again, and I wish you a fruitful meeting, and I hope, like Klaus, that this will lead to a lot of high-quality application. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Claire, for this very insightful remarks and introduction also on the policy context of MSCA and doctoral networks. Let's move now to the next part of this session, and let me first introduce my colleagues together with me for this morning. And I will start with Michaela Bitsakis, who is Head of Sector for the MSCA Doctoral Networks in the European Research Executive Agency. Then we have together with us Julien Jordani, who is a co-coordinator in the MSCA Doctoral Network unit in the European Research Executive Agency. And finally, Sohail Luka, who is Policy Officer in the MSCA Policy Unit in the European Commission's Directorate General for Education, Youth, Sport and Culture. So welcome as well to you. And let's now have a very quick look at who is attending our event, and let's go through the poll in Slido. You can still reply for the latecomers. We have more than 100 participants to this short poll, so who are you? So it seems that most of you, and a large majority, are potential applicants, so I think you will be very interested to know all the details about the DN 2024 call. We also have a few national contact points connected, and don't forget that they may also give you very good advice in order to prepare your application. We have also other stakeholders. And then regarding the second question about your organization type, it seems that also 67% of you are representing higher or secondary education establishments. We have also a good number of research organizations, private for-profit entity as well, and other public bodies and European institutions as well. Maybe some colleagues also watching this event today. So the next question is also about your previous experience about MSCA doctoral networks or ITN program. Most of you, again, more than 60% of you have a previous experience in our call and in this program specifically. But we have also a significant number of newcomers with no experience yet with MSCA doctoral networks. And this session should really help you and guide you in order to prepare your application as best as possible. So you will discover all the specificities, the eligibility criteria, the proposal template, but also all the specific MSCA doctoral networks requirements that Julien will present you later on. For those of you who have already some experience with our call, of course, this session should also be very interesting for you. First of all, to know more about the few important novelties for this DN 2024 call, but also to have also a refresher on all other requirements. So with this, I would like also to have a quick reminder on the agenda of today. As Klaus mentioned earlier, we will have now a full presentation of Doctoral Network 2024 call, followed by a short coffee break, and then followed by a question and answer session using Slido. So I really encourage you to still submit all your questions via Slido using the code hashtag DN 2024 or the QR code appearing on the screen. So now let's move to the main presentation of this morning session. And I will give the floor to Sohail, who will give us some more policy context about MSCA and doctoral networks in particular. Sohail, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Audrey, and good morning, everybody. So as Audrey mentioned, I'm just going to briefly share with you some thoughts about the policy behind the MSCA actions in general, and especially, of course, the doctoral networks. Yeah. So this year, MSCA is 28 years old. And during these years, it has established itself as a world reference for research and training. And also through these years, it has developed a core set of principles. And these are the principles that we use as a guide when we design these actions. The core business of MSCA is the researchers' training, skill, and career development. And as Claire just mentioned, it's a bottom-up set of actions. That is, excellence is the main focus, and it is open to all research disciplines and all research fields. International, intersectoral, and interdisciplinary mobility are, again, core principles in there, and we put a strong emphasis on insisting on attractive working and employment conditions for all the fellows involved. The structuring impact is an impact that goes to the involved organizations that hopefully would last beyond the lifetime of the project itself. And of course, as you will see, there's a strong emphasis on collaboration with the industry, including small and medium enterprises. So looking at Horizon Europe, we find that MSCA is funded under the Pillar 1, which is called Excellent Science, again emphasizing the main priority of this program. It is funded there together with the European Research Council and research infrastructure. Now, if we zoom a little bit more, there are 5 MSCA actions, and Horizon Europe dedicates 50% of the MSCA budget to doctoral networks. And this year, COAL is actually the largest so far with 609 million euros. But what is a doctoral network? Very schematically, and I promise that Junia will give you more details than this, because of course this is not enough for you to write a proposal, but schematically it is a consortium, so it's not for individual fellowships, it's a consortium that proposes a research project. Again, there is a research project, so this is not simply a mobility action. This research project is composed of interlinked individual projects for doctoral candidates. Now, in this scheme, there are benefits for the doctoral candidate, for the organizations involved, and of course for Europe as a whole. By the end of the fellowship, we hope to have a well-rounded doctoral fellow who of course was trained thoroughly in the research related but also the transferable skills, had benefited from secondments between countries and between sectors among the members of the consortium, international mobility, but also, there we go, also having a career development plan, appropriate supervision, and of course their individual research project. Being in a consortium is a big benefit for the doctoral researchers. So if we look at the organizations themselves, they have access to talent through EU-funded doctoral candidates. That's already a clear benefit, the most obvious, let's say. Being in a network, the consortium and beyond, creates long-lasting collaboration and transfer of knowledge. Among them, they build the research capacity and they improve the quality and the relevance and sustainability of their existing doctoral programs. For Europe, I don't know, I'm having a touch problem. For Europe, of course, it makes Europe an attractive destination for world doctoral talents and researchers in general. It also encouraged the circulation of knowledge within Europe. It helps with the sustainable competitiveness of Europe because these projects produce innovation products as well. And of course, it improves the job of a researcher in Europe, it improves researcher's career. So these are immediate impacts for all involved in the project. But there is also the long-term strategic impact for Europe. Again, talking again about the structuring effect, the effect that the whole institution would feel after one group participates in a doctoral networks, the long-lasting effect. Also, MSCA being a trendsetter has a ripple effect in the surroundings. That is, the MSCA pioneered having a green charter, for instance, of how to make our research more green, pioneered having a guideline on supervision, a career development plan. These are actions that were started by MSCA as trendsetters, and now we see them as commonplace. All of this put together, of course, renders Europe an attractive destination for somebody who wants to do his or her doctorate. Now, even though the doctoral networks program is really a world reference, we continue to try to improving it from year to year based on the inputs coming from the projects, but also from our national contact points and from other stakeholders. The launch of the first call of Horizon Europe was in 2021, and already in 2022, we introduced some amendments, making it easier for the recruitment in industrial doctorates. That is, making it no longer mandatory that the doctoral candidate will have to have two contracts, one after the other, for working in the academic and non-academic sector premises, respectively. Until then, there was a limit of 1/3 of the fellowship duration for secondments for all actions, and now, since 2022, for industrial doctorates and joint doctorates, this maximum limit was abolished. And we introduced some simplification measure of abolishing the requirement for a steering board. There was a steering board and a supervision board, and now there is only the steering board. Last year, call 2023, again, as Claire mentioned, we introduced important amendments, which is raising the grant size for the standard doctoral network from 360 to 540 person month. And we also increased the maximum duration of the fellowships for joint doctorates to 4 years and the project to 5 years. This is because in the joint doctorates, there is some administrative parts that are more time consuming, and we thought to factor this in. As far as simplification is concerned, again, we abolished the requirement for the letter of commitment for associated partners. Finally, in this call, in this year, again, as Claire mentioned, it's now possible in a joint doctor to have the second degree awarding institution from a country that is non-associated and non-EU member state, meaning that the second partner in a joint doctorate indeed can be Japan and the US, but also Egypt or Brazil or any other non-associated, non-member state country. I think with this, I would pass it back to you, Audrey.
Introduction on the doctoral networks, and in particular on the 2024 call. We now have a better idea of the evolution also of all the requirements since the beginning of Horizon Europe, and all the flexibility, simplification and incentives that we have now for doctoral networks. And now I will give the floor to Julien, who will give you some more detail on the call itself, all the requirements and all the guidance that you need to prepare your application. Julien?
Thank you, Audrey, and good morning, everyone, or good afternoon if you're watching the recorded version of this event. Now I'm going to give you more details about the doctoral networks, its eligibility criteria, how it's evaluated, and so on. So, doctoral networks, as all MSCA actions, are bottom-up actions, and it's composed of 8 scientific panels. So whenever you want to submit a proposal, you don't submit it to a predefined topic because it's bottom-up, but you are going to submit it to one of the 8 different scientific panels we have. So life science, physics, social sciences, engineering, and so on. Within these panels, there are actually 3 implementation modes or types of actions, as we call them, and this was already touched upon by Sohail and Klaus. You have the doctoral networks that we will call standard doctoral networks to make it simpler, but you also have 2 specific implementation modes. You have the industrial doctorates, and as the name suggests, it has a stronger focus on the non-academic participation in the program. More details will follow. And you also have the joint doctorates with emphasis on joint and multiple degrees. Now, what you have to know is that contrary to what happened in H2020 in Horizon Europe, all 3 implementation modes compete within the same scientific panel. So that means that if they are within, say, the chemistry panel, an industrial doctorate will compete against the standard doctoral network and against joint doctorate. So the evaluation criteria are the same for all three implementation modes, and they all compete within the same budget. And there's one budget per panel. Now, novelties, as you figured out since the beginning of this information session, there is always the drive to simplify and take feedback from different stakeholders to improve, let's say, the funding scheme. So I will give you more details on that a bit later, but just as a teaser, we have an increased unit costs this year to factor in the inflation that happened in the last years. So basically, you will see that the salary of the fellow and the mobility allowance have increased this year. Resubmission restrictions, this is not new as such because it's been in place since 2022, but it's a bit more clarified this year. So as a teaser, basically, whenever you submit a proposal, you have to declare whether it is a resubmission or not. It is within the submission template. And if you submitted a proposal in the end 2023 and you had a score of less than 80%, you are not allowed to resubmit a similar proposal in the 2024 call. You can submit it again in 2025, but not in 2024. And what's new in 2024 is that we have defined further what is a resubmission. And to make a long story short, any proposal that has more than 70% of the same of consortium composition triggers not an alarm, but let's say further investigations from our side. And if a proposal has more than 70% of consortium composition similarity compared to last year's proposal, we will look into the content of the proposal and whether you declared it or not. If it is a resubmission, an eligibility committee will decide whether your proposal can be submitted and evaluated or not. For joint doctorate, there is a simplification in the eligibility conditions. You might remember, for those who submitted before, that in the past, each fellow had to be enrolled in a joint double or multiple degree that was awarded by entities, and at least two of them had to be in a member state or associated countries. So that meant that you could not have, for instance, a joint degree between, say, Brazil and Germany, for instance, because you only had one member state. And now it's actually possible. Now the eligibility condition is that each fellow has to be enrolled in a joint double multiple degree with at least one EU member state or associated country. So now it is possible to have a joint degree with, say, Brazil and Germany, or just to shuffle a bit with the US and Portugal, for instance. Now we've talked about a number of things, joint double multiple degrees, participants, non-academic sector, and it's important to define them according to our definition. So what is a joint or double or multiple degree? Well, quite simply, a joint degree is a single diploma that is issued by at least two different institutions and recognized officially. Now, a double or multiple degree is two or more separate diplomas that are issued by two or more higher education institutions and recognized officially, right? So joint, single degree, double, multiple, two or more degrees. Now, whenever you submit a joint doctorate proposal, you have to submit also letters of pre-agreement. This is in the proposal template. You just follow the template, and it's basically a plea to deliver joint, double, multiple doctoral degrees for the fellows that will be enrolled in your project, should your proposal be funded. Academic versus non-academic. So The definition of the academic sector is public or private higher education establishment, public or private non-profit research organization, and international European research organizations. This is the definition of academic sector for us. The non-academic sector is the definition, if you will, by exclusion. If an entity does not belong to the academic sector, then it's part of the non-academic sector. Now, it's very important to realize that academic versus non-academic has nothing to do with public or private, right? You see that the private non-profit research organization belongs to the academic sector. There is also a frequent confusion that academic means awarding a degree, and there are some entities that say, well, we don't award a degree, so we should be non-academic. That's not the case. So pay attention, especially when there's eligibility conditions involved for industrial doctorates, that the sector of your entity is actually defined upon its registration in the participant register. So when you submit a proposal, as an entity, you have to register in the database, in the participant register, and you have to fill in a number of fields, you have to send a number of documents, and the system will define, based on this definition, whether you belong to the academic and non-academic sector. So pay attention to that, and don't get confused between the academic, non-academic, public, private, awarding a degree or not. Participants type. There are actually two ways to participate in a proposal and in a project. You can be a beneficiary or you can be an associated partner. Now, starting with the beneficiary, as the name suggests, the beneficiary benefits directly from the funds that we give to the project. So could be either academic or non-academic, but the beneficiaries, they all signed the grant agreement. Grant agreement is basically the contract for the project, the contract that you have with the institution to run your project. The beneficiaries, they have to recruit the researchers. It's not possible to be a beneficiary if you don't recruit anybody in the project. The beneficiaries are going to train and host the seconded researchers. They're going to participate in the supervisory board, and they can directly claim costs. So they claim the costs for having their fellows work in their institutions. Now, the associated partners, they are also involved in the project, but in a different way. They do not sign the grant agreement, and they do not recruit researchers. The associated partners cannot recruit researchers. But they can do many different things within the project. For instance, they can provide training. They can host seconded researchers. So it's a way to involve some institutions that maybe for one reason or another, they don't want to enter into a signature of the grant agreement with the commission, but they still want to get involved. So you can involve them like that. So you can have an associated partner to allow your fellows to have a secondment opportunity somewhere, for instance. But they don't directly claim costs. Now, when I say they don't directly claim costs, it doesn't mean that they cannot be paid for whatever action they do within the project. And I will tell you a bit more about that later, but they can indirectly claim costs, and a bit more on that later. And now I think it's back to you, Audrey.
Yes, thanks a lot, Julien, for this first part of the presentation. And we will have now a few frequently asked questions that we will try to reply together with Michaela and Sohail. Just to mention that those frequently asked questions are also available on the Funding and Tenders portal on the call page, so you can have access to them as well already now or after the event. And we will start now with the first question. So what criteria are used to consider a proposal as a resubmission? Michaela, you want to answer?
Yes, thank you very much, Audrey, and good morning also from my side. So as Julien explained, and he explained it very well, so I will repeat, when you submit a proposal to the call, you have to indicate whether it is a resubmission or not. And you are not allowed, and this is specifically written in the work program, to resubmit a proposal which had a score of less than 80% in the previous MSCA Doctoral Networks call under Horizon Europe. And in addition to that, and irrespective of what you have declared, if your proposal involves 70% of the same recruiting organizations, we will carry out a similarity check. And we will carry out with the help of a group of independent experts evaluators who will assess whether the objectives are similar, and they will also assess the scientific approach to implement those objectives. And the assessment of those independent evaluators will be then submitted to an eligibility committee, and the eligibility committee will decide whether your proposal is indeed a resubmission or not, and it can lead actually to an ineligibility of your proposal in case it is indeed the same as the one which was submitted in a previous call.
Thanks a lot, Michaela, for this very clear answer. We will now have a second question. Is the non-academic sector participation essential in Horizon Europe MSCA Doctoral Network proposal? Sohail, you can maybe give us some ideas?
Yeah. I mean, it is not an eligibility criterion, but if we look at all the core principles that we described and talked about, one can be sure that this will be a very important factor in the evaluation, for instance, and of course the way not only just involvement but the roles given within the consortium to the non-academic sector, and the exposure of the doctoral fellows throughout the fellowship to the non-academic sector. So the answer would be yes. It's very important, and I'm sure it will be an important factor also during the evaluation.
Yes, indeed, Sohail. Thank you for this answer. Maybe just to complement that in case of an industrial doctorate, the non-academic sector participation is almost mandatory if you want to reach the minimum requirement of 50% of the fellowship in the non-academic sector. But indeed, it's quite an essential criterion, and as described in the evaluation criteria that Julien will present you afterwards. So the next question is about industrial doctorates. So for DNID, should the non-academic partners belong to industry or business? And is it possible to include private research organizations or NGOs as non-academic partners? Michaela?
Thank you, Audrey. So for this question, it is very important to refer actually to the definitions of what we consider the non-academic sector and the academic sector. And actually, as it is stated in the definition, the non-academic sector includes all the socio-economic actors which are not included in the academic sector. So it doesn't mean necessarily that in case you want to submit a proposal with non-academic partners, they need to belong to the industry or business. It can also be a private research organization if this specific private research organization doesn't have research at its main activity. So again, it's important to check how we define the research organizations. It's the same thing for NGOs and non-academic partners. So what you need to do before submitting a proposal is to actually check and read very carefully the definitions in the work program, but also have a look at the rules for legal entity validation, LEAR appointment, and financial capacity assessment. You will find the precise definitions which will help you when you submit your proposal and when you register your entity in the participant portal to properly define whether you're actually a non-academic or academic participant. And this status will automatically be calculated, as Julien explained. And therefore, it is very important that you verify that the information that you have provided is accurate compared to the definitions we have. And this is also the reason why we ask you to define your academic or non-academic status in Part B. And in case of discrepancy during the evaluation, we will verify and check out with you which is your actual status. So be very careful and check very well the definitions we have.
Thanks a lot, Michaela. So let's now have another frequently asked questions. So how is the total budget for the DN 2024 call distributed between the three types of doctoral networks? And is there an advantage of submitting joint doctorates or industrial doctorates instead of a standard doctoral network? Sohail?
Yes, I mean, I think I would say that, Julien partly addressed this. There are no quotas of budget for the three implementation types. No, we cannot make a statement that there is an advantage of submitting to one or the other. All I can say is that whichever type you submit, the actual proposal should reflect the objectives and priorities and the specificities of each of these types. But of course, there is no advantage in favoring or disfavoring in the evaluation. But I can only say that the joint doctorate and the industrial doctorate are very attractive types, and this is also especially judged from the feedback from the fellows themselves when they participate in these schemes.
Thanks a lot, Sohail, for this very comprehensive answer. And let's now move on to the second part of this presentation. Please, Julien, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Audrey. So now I'm going to explain to you what are the eligibility conditions that apply to submit a proposal under the Doctoral Networks 2024. So, as was mentioned before, these are consortia-led proposals, so this is not a call for individual researchers who want to apply to fund their own PhD. Those are institutions that can apply. So who can apply in any legal entity worldwide? Any legal entity worldwide, but you will see that some applicants can, some entities, depending on the countries where they are from, are eligible for funding, and some entities are eligible to participate but not get funding. Basically, those are consortia composed of universities, research institutions, businesses, other socio-economic actors, and we mentioned NGOs, for instance. This is all perfectly possible. The minimum condition is that there should be at least 3 different entities from 3 different member states or associated countries. All right? And out of these 3, at least 1 should be from a member state. Now, those are the minimum conditions, but once you've reached these conditions, of course, you can top up with other entities from different countries, not necessarily member state or associated countries. And this is for the beneficiaries. But for the associated partners, there is no minimum or maximum number of associated partners. You can add as many as necessary and as little as needed. I mean, this is really completely up to you. Now, there are some specific cases. And for those cases, I invite you to refer to the general annexes to the work program 2023-2025. There are restrictions for the protection of European communication networks, and there are a number of entities that are assessed as high-risk suppliers of mobile network communication equipment, and those entities are not eligible to participate as beneficiary or as associated partners. They're not eligible to participate at all. Now, there's a list of these entities. It's quite a long list, so I will not go through it now, but I invite you to go through the general annexes of the work program where you can have a list of such entities. There is also another restriction, is that legal entities established in Russia, Belarus, or in the parts of Ukraine that are not controlled by the government of Ukraine, those are not eligible to participate neither in any capacity. So basically, anyone can participate worldwide except for these important restrictions. Again, everything is explained in the general annexes of the work program, of the current work program. Now, you know how many entities should be there at minimum. Now, what is the size of the project that you can apply to? So your proposal can have up to 540 person month, and this is the case for any type of action. By type of action, I mean standard doctoral networks or industrial doctorates or joint doctorates. All right? And the concept of person months maybe will be clarified a bit further down the presentation. In terms of duration of the proposal, each proposal is max 48 months, so 4 years for the standard doctoral networks and the industrial doctorates. And there's an incentive for joint doctorates that Sohail talked about earlier that can go up to 60 months, so 5 years basically. Within this project, so one project proposing a research program with interlinked individual PhD projects. So this starts a fellowship. So this is the duration of the contracts of the fellows you will recruit later. This is minimum 3 months and maximum 36 months, so 3 years, for standard and industrial doctorates. For joint doctorates, you can go up to 48 months, so 4 years. And it's also the reason why the duration of the overall joint doctorate project has increased by 1 year as well. The fellows that each institution will recruit in the program, they can go on secondment worldwide, any sector, but there's a cap for standard doctoral networks. There is a cap of 1/3 of their fellowship duration. So basically, if a fellow has a contract of 36 months in University A, they can go up to 12 months in total of secondment elsewhere. Now, for industrial doctorates and joint doctorates, there is no secondment limitation. So they can go on secondment for as long as required. Of course, keeping in mind any local regulations to obtain their joint doctorates, for instance. That goes without saying. Other eligibility conditions, I think I said that before, but all beneficiaries must recruit at least one doctoral candidate. So if an entity does not recruit, they should not be beneficiary. They can be associated partners, though. And these beneficiaries must host and supervise the fellows in their own premises or use associated partners linked to them to do so. There is also a restriction on the that reflects a bit the, let's say, the geographical diversity, maybe, if you will, of the consortium, is that there should not be more than 40% of the budget allocated to the same country within a consortium. All right. So, if you have a partnership of 10 different entities and 7 of them are from the same countries, probably you might not reach this requirement. So max 40% of the budget. Pay attention that this is about the budget. It's not about the number of fellows. You will see later on that the salaries of the fellows are subject to country correction coefficient. Simply put, the cost of living is not the same in Sweden or in Portugal, for instance. So the salary is updated accordingly. So the cost, so to speak, of one fellow in different countries is not the same. And the 40% applies to the budget, not on the number of person months. So pay attention to that. There are some confusions about that. And there is a resubmission restriction that we talked about for proposals scoring below 80% in the call 2023. Sorry for that. Cannot resubmit in 2024. And there are some specific eligibility conditions for IDs and JDs. So, industrial doctorates, each fellow must spend at least 50% of their fellowship in the non-academic sector. This is an eligibility condition. So minimum 50%, doesn't need to be exactly 50%. So that's a minimum. And this could be through contract through secondment, whatever. The non-academic sector can act as a beneficiary or as associated partner, as there are no secondment limitations. So you're not limited by the 1/3. So you could have all the non-academic sector being as associated partner and the fellows seconded for minimum 50% of their time there. It's not a problem for IDs. And what's important, and actually a requirement, is that academic and non-academic organizations must jointly supervise the fellows. Now for JDs, joint doctorates, you should have, on top of the common eligibility conditions, at least 3 participants awarding a PhD, and one of which should be from a member state or associated countries. This is for the consortium. Then all the fellows, and I really stress that all the fellows have to be enrolled in a joint double or multiple PhD. And those joint double multiple PhD should be delivered by different entities, and one of these entities at least should be from a member state or an associated countries. So it's not possible to have 10 fellows enrolled in a multiple degree and 1 fellow enrolled in a single degree. That's not possible for a joint doctorate. You should have joint admission, selection, training, supervision, and governance. So there is this structure effect of the joint doctorate. That's important there. You have the letter of pre-agreement that has to be submitted within the proposal. We've discussed about that earlier. And again, the fellows can have 1 more year, 48-month fellowship, and the project can be up to 5 years. So we've made a summary table for you to peruse at your own pace. I will not go through all that because these are all things that we already told you. So you have the 3 different modes, the standard, industrial doctorates, and joint doctorates. And you have here the eligibility condition for consortia, the duration, the contract of the fellows, the secondments, and yes, that's it. Now, this is the eligibility condition when you submit the proposal. Then, when your proposal is granted, then you need to recruit your fellows. So these fellows need to be eligible as well, and we call them doctoral candidates. We used to call them early stage researchers back in H2020. Now they're called doctoral candidates. So in order to be eligible, a doctoral candidate should not have a doctoral degree at the date of recruitment. So they should not already have a PhD. They have to be recruited following an open, merit-based and transparent recruitment procedure. So this is important. It's part also of the charter and code for the recruitment of researchers. And this can be audited. So you have to be able to show that the procedure was open, merit-based and transparent. They have to be enrolled in a PhD from at least 1 EU member state or associated countries. So it means that this is important when you submit your proposal. You will explain where each fellow will be enrolled, and all of them have to be enrolled in a PhD from at least 1 EU member state or associated countries. Of course, for joint doctorates, we talked about that. They have to be in a joint, double, multiple. The doctoral candidates can be of any nationalities. So the doctoral networks is open to the world. I mean, they don't need to be nationals from a member state or associated countries. They can come from anywhere in the world, but they have to fulfill the MSCA mobility condition. MSCA, a big focus is on mobility, and these doctoral candidates must not have resided or carried out their main activity in the country of the recruiting beneficiaries for more than 12 months in the past 3 years. And that counts at the recruitment date of the fellow. This is again a summary for the eligibility conditions for the researchers. That again, I will not go through it, but you will have the slide on the platform and you can have a look at your own pace. And I think that's it for me for the moment. Back to you, Audrey.
Thanks a lot, Julien. And indeed, we will have now a few frequently asked questions on this specific part of the presentation. And we can take the first question. So how do the UK partners have to be considered for this call? Are UK partners allowed to be coordinators of a doctoral network under this call? Michaela?
Thank you, Audrey. So the good news, as announced before by Klaus also, is that the UK Association Agreement has been signed since January of this year. And this means that UK partners can participate not only as coordinators, but also as beneficiaries. And they are fully eligible for funding.
Thanks a lot, Michaela. The next question now is about joint doctorate. So can one of the degree awarding organizations be a non-EU country that is not associated to Horizon Europe? I'm sure, Sohail, that you have the answer.
Yes, so I mean, I think now we talked about it now 3 times so far, so I think it's clear we are trying to make sure that everybody knows that this new amendment is there. So yes, it is possible, and then this country can be really, you know, any country in the world, as long as again there is not on any restriction list, you know, like the ones that Julien has mentioned. So the answer is yes.
Thanks a lot, Sohail. The next question is, in case of beneficiaries from low-income third countries which are eligible for funding, could they enroll their recruited doctoral candidates in a PhD program in that country? Michaela?
Yes, thank you. So actually this will depend of the type of action. So if we are talking, for example, of joint doctorates, and we have actually repeated quite a lot of times today, it is possible indeed in a double degree to have one beneficiary from a low-income country awarding a doctoral degree if the other awarding institution comes from a member state or associated country. But in case it's a standard doctoral network, then the problem is that this would not be eligible. I mean, during the evaluation, if this is the case and you have entered in a standard doctoral network, a beneficiary awarding a PhD from a low-income country, the evaluators will assess the impact it has on the proposal. It will have an impact on the score. But let's say that your proposal nevertheless is excellent and reaches actually the gap, this could be corrected. But please bear in mind that it might be penalized during the evaluation.
Thanks a lot, Michaela. And it's also true for industrial doctorates in this case as for standard doctoral networks.
Indeed.
So the last frequently asked questions on this part is about the participation of the Joint Research Center, JRC. Can they be part of a doctoral network consortium, Sohail?
Yeah, so again, the short answer is yes, but of course we don't like short answers. So I think it's one of the underutilized opportunities because the Joint Research Center, they are our colleagues here at the Commission, but they are the only colleagues who actually do actual research on the bench. They have reagents, they have huge laboratories, and they have 5 state-of-the-art facilities around Europe, and well over 1,000 publications per year, and not everybody knows that. So they can become part of the consortium. They can become a destination for secondments of doctoral candidates during their journey in the fellowship. The only thing that I think would be worth mentioning that the GRC should not participate in the preparation and the submission of the proposal. They can be mentioned in the description of work, and then once the project is approved, they can access the grant agreement. Yeah, but again, the answer is yes, it is possible.
Thanks a lot, Sohail, for this clarification, which is indeed important. So let's move on now to the last part of this presentation. And Julien will guide you through the funding mechanism, as the evaluation criteria, our evaluation process, and all the material and resources that you may need to prepare your application. Julien?
Thank you, Audrey. So I hope you're not tired of me. There's a part 3 now. So I'm going to tell you all about funding mechanisms, how we evaluate, and where you can find information in our platform. So we basically operate on a unit cost level, so it's a very simplified funding mechanism. So it's basically 1 person month is 1 unit. So say that you're University A in a consortium and you recruit a fellow. If this fellow works for 1 month full-time in your institution, that's 1 person month, that's 1 unit. So that means if they have a contract of 36 months, that's going to be 36 units. And that's where the maximum 540 person months per project comes from. So that basically corresponds to 15 fellows if they all have a 36 months contract. Of course, for joint doctorates, since they can have 48 months, then I'll let you do the math of the different combinations that are possible. So there's a fixed amount in euro per unit cost, and basically the total cost is the cost per unit times the number of units. So the cost per month times the number of months. And it's reimbursed 100%. So these are the different cost categories. You see that there is one part which is a contribution for the recruited researchers, and all of that needs to go for the doctoral candidates. That's the living allowance. Living allowance is the salary, basically, and you see a little asterisk there, and this is what I told you about before. This is multiplied by the country correction coefficient. So it's 4,010 euros, but in some countries it will be more, in some countries it will be less, depending on the this correction coefficient. There is the mobility allowance that all fellows should get every month. This is basically to factor in the fact that they had to undergo mobility in order to start their project. So if they didn't undergo mobility, they would not be eligible, so they should all get it. Family allowance, if applicable. Now there was a simplification in Horizon Europe that it's possible to, let's say, acquire a family, so to speak, for lack of a better word, to get a family during the fellowship. And now it's possible to change this status during their fellowship, whereas it was not possible in Horizon 2020. So all of that needs to go to the researcher. And then you have the institutional contributions, and this is basically to run the project. So you have here the research, training, and networking contributions. So this is for consumables, equipment, computer time, things like that. And you also have the management and indirect contribution. And going back to what I told you earlier about the associated partners, saying they cannot directly contribute costs. What does that mean? That beneficiaries, if they have a fellow that worked 10 months, okay, they can get 10 times that. Okay? Associated partners don't claim costs, but the B part, so the institutional contributions, this is something that can be redistributed within the consortium as the consortium sees fit. Usually this is defined in the consortium agreement, but typically the coordinator will get more management and indirect contribution because they have more coordinating role in the consortium. And this, through this pot of money, let's say, you could fund an associated partner to cover the costs of a training that they organize or a secondment that they host. Now, how do we evaluate these proposals? Very simply, and this is very solid, it's been there forever. I've started a job 17 years ago, and that was already the case. So this is very solid, and it's very solid. So basically, each proposal is first evaluated by, so I should have started by saying that it's a peer review process. So we don't evaluate proposal, but external experts evaluate proposals. So those are your peers, all right? And each proposal is evaluated by 3 independent experts. So independently meaning that they don't know, each expert doesn't know which are the other 2, right? And they each write an individual evaluation report on your proposal. Then they gather together, and this is a consensus group. And what happens is that they have to agree on a common set of comments, assessment comments, and score. So they can deviate from what they said before because, I mean, those three different experts can see the proposal from different angle, from different disciplines, if the proposal is interdisciplinary or multidisciplinary. And together, they agree on the consensus report, and this is the outcome of the evaluation, all right? Now, on which base do they evaluate the proposal? They evaluate the proposal based on the award criteria. So this is defined in the work program. You have that on the funding and tender portal as well with the evaluation criteria. So you have three evaluation criteria: excellence, impact, and implementation. And within these three criteria, you have sub-criteria, and this basically reflects the proposal template. You will see through the proposal template that one sub-criterion is basically one section, more or less, of the proposal template. So each of these criteria will be scored 0 to 5, and there will be comments on each of the sub-criteria. And in the end, that will give you a score out of 100. Why out of 100? Because there is some weighting. Excellent counts more than impact, which counts more than implementation. So 50%, 30%, 20%. And all of that gives you a score of 100 out of 100. How do you apply and how do you find the information that's important for you to apply? So basically, there's a one-stop shop you should go to, and this is the funding and tender portal. So if you go to the funding and tender portal, you go to the search engine and you type doctoral networks, you click on search, and then you will land on the call page where you will have the work program, the Horizon Europe program guide, the guide for applicant, the proposal template. It's very important to browse everything, obviously, but most importantly is the guide for applicant and proposal template. In the proposal template, you have the instructions how to fill it in, all right? There has been some slight changes this year to the proposal template, some simplification, so I invite you to really have a look. Even if you submitted proposals last year, this has changed slightly, so I really invite you to have a look at it, and most importantly, to follow it. And also the European Horizon Europe program guide, in which you will have the list of all the countries that are eligible to participate and get funded. Basically, you will see there is a whole explanation on that. If your country is not part of the list and is not a member state or an associated country, then you can participate, but without funding. So you need to bring your own funds to the program. All right. So there's a part A, which is structured data that you fill in directly in the system, and there's a part B that you have to upload. So following the proposal template, you fill in this part B and you upload it as a PDF. There are two part Bs. The part B1, there's a page limit of 30 pages. Please respect this. Excess page will be automatically blanked out, so even if the experts wanted to read it, they cannot. There's nothing here. And the part B2 has no size limitation. And that's the same slide, I think, but you have links now if you want. But really everything is on the call page of the funding and tender portal. So basically, in order to prepare your proposal, read the MSCA work program and guidance documents, use the proposal template, everything is written inside, and this proposal template will also be given to the experts so that they know what's expected of you to fill in the proposal. Read the evaluation forms. This is the basis on which you will be evaluated. Don't underestimate any part of the proposal. So there are 3 criteria. All of them are, even if I told you excellence was more important than impact, which was more important than implementation, it's still a very competitive program, roughly more than 1,000 proposals. We estimate around 160 to be funded. So you see, you have to be very good everywhere. So not only in excellence, but everywhere. Write each sections clearly and coherently with all the other sections of the proposal. Last bit of advice, it's always a good thing to perform an internal peer review of your proposal with your consortium partners. Nothing better than a fresh pair of eyes. Consult your national contact points. They know everything about the call. Duly complete part A, start preparing early, and don't leave submission for the last minute. One last thing is, even when you've submitted your proposal, have a look at what is submitted. So you can still download your proposal, see what's in the system, have another look, because before the call deadline, you can still update your proposal. So that's important. In the end, think if you are evaluating this proposal with the guidance documents you have at your disposal, meaning the evaluation criteria and the proposal template, how would you evaluate your own proposal? So think like an evaluator, write for an evaluator. And lastly, for the resources, here are links to the different places you can find resources. Most of these links you can find already from the funding and tender portal. So from there you have links to the other places, but you can also have a look at the MSCA website, at the REA, so European Research Executive Agency website. We invite you to have a look at the MSCA guidelines on supervision. There is a link to that from the proposal template as well. On the code of conduct for the recruitment of researchers, that's also an important part of the policy of MSCA actions. And you have also the MSCA list of descriptors that we also call keywords from time to time. And these are the descriptors that correspond to each scientific panel. If you have any questions, you can always, of course, ask questions through Slido, and we will endeavor to answer all of them now. Or if we don't have time, we will answer in writing and put it on the event website. But you can also ask advice to your national contact points. They are very experienced in the call, in the funding scheme, and they can answer all your questions. Or you can also contact the Research Inquiry Service, and if you click on this, you will have the link to it. And I leave maybe Audrey for the inspirational quote, or?
Okay, if you want, Julien. Thanks a lot. Thank you very much for this hopefully very useful presentation for all our potential applicants. And as Marie Skłodowska-Curie would say, you cannot hope to build a better world without improving the individuals. So it seems that we are running slightly late compared to our initial program, so we will skip the last frequently asked questions that we planned, but I'm sure that most of them are already submitted via Slido. So just to sum up a bit what we have heard this morning, and really I do hope that you found all the information that you need to prepare your proposal, and also you get to know more about industrial doctorates, joint doctorates, and standard doctoral networks. So let me just highlight a few important messages. So in terms of participation, this year, the United Kingdom, UK, is now a fully associated country to Horizon Europe. We also heard that we have now increased the living and mobility allowances for the future fellows to be recruited within the networks, so to cope with the inflation. Don't forget all the simplification and incentives measures for industrial doctorates, in particular for non-academic participants, as explained already by Sohail and Julien. And finally, regarding the further simplification that we have introduced for joint doctorates this year regarding the double and joint PhD degree awarding entities. So please, you can still submit all your questions via Slido. I again invite you to connect to Slido, to use a QR code appearing on the screen, and we will try again to reply to most of them in the next part of the session. But anyway, if we won't have time to address all of them, we will publish most frequent answers, to most frequent questions on the event platform, and you will get the link afterwards. Don't forget also that you have a number of useful links, including the call page on Slido as well. So with that, I would like to also mention that all presentation that you saw today will be also available on the event platform. And let's now have a very short coffee break, slightly less than expected, slightly shorter than expected. Sorry for that. Hope that you will still be able to get a coffee. But let's resume in 10 minutes and stay tuned. Thank you. So welcome back to this MSCA Doctoral Networks 2024 call information event. So we will start now our question and answer session using Slido. So again, I'm inviting you to submit all the questions you may still have after the full presentation given by Sohail and Julien. You can access Slido using the code hashtag DN2024 or the QR code appearing on the screen. And maybe check as well all the questions already submitted, since maybe some of them and some questions that you may want to ask are already submitted. If a question is too specific or refers to a too specific case, we may reply just in writing and not in live to make sure to address all aspects of the questions. Again, we'll try to reply as many questions as possible today in live, but of course, if we don't have time, we will also make sure to reply to most frequent ones and to publish all answers on the event platform. So let me again introduce all the panelists and colleagues with me today who will help me reply to your questions. And I will again welcome Michaela, Julien, and Sohail. And we can now start with the first question. So the first question is about the proposal template, which is now requesting that the work is quantified for each task in the work packages table. Could you please explain what is meant with quantified? So I would say maybe Julien would like to reply to this one.
Sure, I can reply to this one, Audrey. So yes, apologies for that. Indeed, this is the. So we don't work in isolation. There are some corporate things, and this was a change in the corporate template that actually does not apply to doctoral networks, because we are based on a unit cost funding scheme. So this doesn't apply to doctoral networks. We have published a call update, I think maybe 2 days ago, on this specific matter. So you do not need to quantify the work for each task in the work package, in the work packages table. You still have to explain who does what, but you don't need to quantify the tasks. So in short, not applicable for us.
Thanks a lot, Julien, very clear. So the next question is about what is new and different in the 2024 MSCA DN application from the 2023 MSCA DN application. I don't know if Julien, you want to to reply? Yeah.
I can reply to that as well. So, I mean, obviously what we talked about earlier, what's new are, of course, the increase of the unit cost for the researchers, and the new, more simple rule for the JDs for the joint, double, or multiple degrees. Now, I assume that the question is also about what's new in terms of the proposal template. So there are a few simplifications, no revolution, more of an evolution. If you go to the funding and tender portal and you download the proposal template, you also have a history of changes that will guide you exactly to what's new. But basically, for instance, the recruitment strategy is now moved to part B2. It's not in part B1 anymore. There's way things are worded are a bit different in the sustainable elements of the doctoral networks. It's just written in a different way. Yeah, basically, I invite you to have a look. I mean, it's no drastic changes, but there are a few changes in the proposal template. There's the quality of the supervision also has slightly changed, but everything is clearly specified in the template and in the history of changes at the beginning of the document.
Thank you, Julien, for this clarification. And indeed, this is not a revolution. There are very minor changes also based on the feedback that we received from you and from other stakeholders and evaluators on the way to further improve and simplify and clarify the template. So the next question, I can maybe take it. It's about the recruitment strategy that Julien was just mentioning as a change in the template. So it is now included in part B2. How is this going to be assessed? So for this one, it's again kind of simplification in terms of the evaluation process as well. So the recruitment strategy has been moved to part B2. So the expert will not assess the content of it, but we need to have it. So meaning that they may penalize the proposal in case you don't have any recruitment strategy in your part B2 and in your proposal. However, we will not ask the expert to assess the content of it. But during the grant agreement preparation and during the implementation of the project, this is something that we need. That's why we still ask for it at proposal stage. So the next question is about letters of commitment, which are no longer applicable since last call already. So how do we prove the commitment of a partner organization or associated partner under Horizon Europe to our training program? Who would like to answer this one? Julien?
I can take this one. Sure. Well, yes, letters of commitments are no longer applicable. So how do you prove the commitment? Basically, you prove it by describing in your proposal what the partner organizations will do within the project. So you have to explain for the associated partners that are part of the consortium, you have to explain what they will do within the project. So this is how you prove it. Which is not so much different as, you know, in the letter of commitment, they were explaining in the letter of commitment what they would do. Now they just have to explain it in the core of the proposal. That's the only difference.
Thank you, Julien. Maybe to complement, the associated partner also need to be mentioned in the part A of the proposal using even temporary peak identification participant code. So meaning that they will have access also to the submission and to the proposal submitted in the portal. And the coordinator may also self-declare that everyone is aware of the proposal and fully committed to it. So the next question is about why did the MSCA adapt the researcher allowances to inflation, but not the institutional allowances? Especially the research and networking allowances are very tight for proper research. Might this be corrected in the future? And I think, Sohail, you would like to answer this one?
Yeah, yes. So of course, the decision to increase the allowances and to come up with the figure of 18% was based on a very extensive study, a huge study that, of course, compared, the different situation in different countries, but also, importantly, surveyed and interviewed partners involved in the projects. So, of course, this is the recommendation that came out and that we followed. Nothing can exclude changes in the future, of course, just to answer the question. But just to highlight that we have to always strike a balance between increasing allowances, all kinds of allowances, and not decreasing the number of projects funded and the number of fellows. So we have to strike this balance if when budget is not increased accordingly. But the answer is that this was all determined by a very extensive study, and that, of course, nothing can be excluded in the future.
Thanks a lot, Sohail. Indeed, this may be rediscussed again in the future. But the priority was indeed for the living and mobility allowances. Yeah. The next question is about supervision, I think. Yes, can scientists at an early stage of their career on a tenure track without a permanent contract yet act as supervisor for doctoral candidates? Who would like to answer this question? Michaela?
Okay. So I think this will actually depend on what is the practices in your own institution, and if indeed you believe that an early stage scientist can act as a supervisor, has the required expertise, and can be committed to supervise the fellow for the whole duration of the fellowship, we will have absolutely no objection to that. And you are best placed to select the best supervisors to recruit the fellows.
Yes, Julien?
Maybe if I can just add to that it's also part of the evaluation criteria, the supervision qualification and experience of the foreseen supervisors. So, I mean, the type of contract the supervisor has within the institution has little relevance for us, but in the evaluation of your proposal, if a supervisor has very limited experience in supervising PhD fellows, this might be reflected in the scores.
Yes, in general, what we see as well in some proposals is co-supervision in this case, where indeed less experienced supervisor could participate as co-supervisor. So this is also a possibility. Thanks a lot to the both of you. And let's move now to the next questions. So 36 months for a PhD as funded through the MSCA being short, how do you consider that one additional year, which seems probably necessary on average, should be funded? Who would like to take this question? Sohail?
Yeah, I mean, I can take it. Okay, now, of course, we solved the issue with joint doctorates.
Indeed.
Now it is 4 years, and the issue of for doctoral degrees that last for more than 3 years needs to be acknowledged. Indeed, it is a problem, and so far every project find their own source, either from the university itself or from elsewhere. But so far, again, we have the same problem. You know, if we really make it all 4 years without an increase in budget, then the number of fellows will decrease. So it's a tough call, if you will. So again, I mean, this the how is what is the current practice. I think that's probably the question. The current practice, yes. I mean, many times the university themselves they find funding for this, or maybe correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe they use some of the institutional cost to fund some of this. I don't know myself, you know, about
yes,
this.
I can complement it.
Yeah.
It's true that so far the usual practice in case the PhD is more than 3 years is to find external funding and additional resources to cover this additional year. It could be eventually part of it could be eventually be used by the institutional cost. However, it should not impact negatively the rest of the implementation of the project. And it's always a plus when you can already at proposal stage ensure and clarify that the PhD will be fully covered, including the last year of PhD. So the next question is now about the participation of third countries such as Switzerland should be supported by the Swiss Evaluation Agency. How should we include Swiss institutions as beneficiary or partner or associated partners? What if a doctoral network is approved by the European Commission but not Switzerland? So I think they are asking if Switzerland can be as beneficiary at proposal stage, and what's happened in case this exceptional funding is not accepted. Who would like to answer this one? Julien?
I can reply to this one. Yes. So, well, as you know, Switzerland is not associated to Horizon Europe for MSCA. So they can participate, but they cannot receive funding. So there is always, and Audrey talked about this exceptional funding, it's always possible to include a high-income third country that would be the same case for Japan, the US, the Swiss, to submit a proposal and as beneficiaries. And then it will be up to the evaluators to assess whether we can exceptionally fund them because, for instance, they have access to a database that only they have access to, or that they have something that you cannot find anywhere else, for instance. This funding is exceptional, so you should not count on it. Most of the time, these entities from these Swiss entities, they should in principle submit a proposal, be part of a proposal as associated partners. So they can participate to the project, but with their own funds. Now, whether the Swiss government decides to agree or not to fund them, then of course it's something that is completely out of our control, and this is something that should be dealt on a case-by-case basis should the proposal be successful and enter this grant agreement preparation process. So this is, I don't really have an answer for that.
Thanks a lot, Julien. Indeed, usually what we saw so far for the first 3 calls under Horizon Europe, Swiss participants were mostly participating as associated partner, using their own funds to recruit their own fellows. In this case, they are part and associated to the doctoral network, but indeed the internal rules that they can apply also towards the fellows should follow the MSCA rules and approach, but we cannot make it mandatory, of course. So next question is about resubmission. So I submitted a project last year. It has been very well evaluated with a very high score, but it is in the reserve list, so for the DN 2023 call, I suppose. Is there any chance, or is there any chance for it to still be accepted this year? So I can maybe answer this one. So for the time being, we are still in the grant agreement preparation phase for all main listed proposals selected for funding. And as soon as we finalize this first part of the process, we will see if we have some more funding available in order to finance a few last reserve list proposals. So this is something that we don't know yet. Hopefully we will know it a bit later, probably during summer or at the end of summer. And then you will be informed about the results in case your reserve list proposal is selected for funding. Of course, in case it is not, nothing prevents you to reapply to this 2024 call for proposal. The next question is about how to convince associated partners to participate. What are the benefits we can highlight to them? Sometimes it is difficult to involve non-academic partners because they do not receive any funding. Who would like to answer this one? Julien? Yes?
Sure, I can take this. So how to convince them to participate? So first, I would like to go back to the last part of the question. It's difficult to involve them because they do not receive any funding. So associated partners can receive they don't receive funding directly from us. But as I said before, the institutional costs, they can be pooled and redistributed within the consortium as the consortium sees fit. And this is an agreement that you have to have amongst yourselves, usually formalized in the consortium agreement. But, just some beneficiaries maybe have research that is more costly than others. Maybe some are involved in more training than others. This is amongst the beneficiary, but you can also redistribute this money to the associated partners. So if an associated partner hosts the fellows for a few months on secondments, then you can stream some funding to them to pay for this, the cost of the secondment. Also, when they organize training, you can stream some of this funding to them for the cost of organizing these trainings. Now, what's the benefit for them? I mean, that depends, but it could be, for instance, transfer of knowledge could be a benefit from them. Starting new collaboration, maybe with some of the consortium partners. This could be another something else. It could be also, getting closer to a university to offer some transversal skills training, for instance, on, I don't know, entrepreneurship or IPR, things like that. So there could be different benefits for associated partners to participate in a program, and they can indirectly receive funds, but this has to be decided by the consortium.
Thank you, Julien. Very clear. So the next question, a non-academic partner industry has to host a fellow and supervise it. What if the scientists in the industry do not have a PhD title? Can still they supervise a student? So who would like to answer this one? Sohail? Yeah?
If it is an industrial doctorate, yes, they have to co-supervise the fellow and to host for minimum 50% of the duration of the fellowship. If it is not an industrial doctorate, there is no obligation. It's a positive aspect, but it's not that they have to. For the PhD title from the industry, no, that's not required. Because also, I mean, it's not common practice to have everybody with a PhD in the industry or in the non-academic world. So can still say, yeah. So I think we answered this already. Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Sohail. And maybe just to complement, so in case a non-academic beneficiary, so participate as a beneficiary and recruit a fellow, they will have to supervise. And indeed, the PhD title is not a mandatory thing to have in the non-academic sector, and we brief also our expert evaluator about these different aspects. Okay, the next question now is about what happens if at submission stage one beneficiary has a budget very close to 40%, let's say 39.95%. The project gets funded and all recruited doctoral candidates have families or special needs, resulting in an increase of allocated budget that will be over 40%. Michaela?
Okay, so it is very important to bear in mind the 50% rule at proposal stage, and indeed it's going to be verified, and I think you will also get a warning. But during implementation, if indeed all the recruited fellows have a family or they request a special needs allowance or a long-term leave allowance and increase their share, this will not be penalized. Of course, in case during the implementation you have an amendment to the grant agreement, and for example you add a beneficiary from the same country and the 40% is increased, then we will take it into account. But for the calculation of the final payment or the interim payment, it will not be affected by the elements you gave in your question.
Thanks a lot, Michaela. Very useful and important clarification indeed. So the next question, in the case of resubmitting an improved, updated, modified proposal.
Submit a proposal. If it is a resubmission, you self-declare it. And even if you do not self-declare it, please be aware that we will carry out a check for all proposals which have a similarity of 70% in the recruiting organizations.
Thanks a lot, Michaela. So before moving to the next question, I would also like to remind you and mention that we have a short satisfaction survey available in Slido. So do not hesitate to answer it. It will take very few minutes, but it's very important for us to receive also your feedback on this event and what can be also further improved for the next event, and if you found it also useful, what kind of information maybe was missing or could be further detailed in the next exercise. So thank you very much already in advance for taking this short survey. So let's now move back to the next question. As a research organization, we do not run PhD programs. Does our doctoral candidates have to be enrolled in a PhD program run by a consortium member, beneficiary, or associated partner, or can they be enrolled in any university in EU? Who would like to answer this one?
Can take it.
Yes, Michaela?
So it is actually mandatory that the awarding institution be part of the consortium as a beneficiary or associated partner. But if you wish to actually enroll in your fellow in any university in the EU, this university can be added as an associated partner, and this will resolve your issue.
Thanks a lot, Michaela. Now move on to the next question. When having, for example, 4 doctoral candidates projects at Swiss institutions, can we apply for 15 additional EU-funded doctoral candidate projects, and should then in total be 19 doctoral candidates projects be described in the proposal? Julien?
Yes. So I will assume, because you talk about 15 DC projects, I would assume that you're talking about the standard doctoral networks, and you think about 15 fellows with a 36 months contract. So yes, you can apply, you can submit a proposal with 15 doctoral candidates projects and have 4 additional doctorate candidates that will be funded, at Swiss institutions that will be funded by the Swiss, by other funds, and that's perfectly possible. You just have to clearly explain in your proposal that these 4 additional doctoral candidates, you should describe their project, but you have to make it clear that they will be funded by the Swiss and that you do not look for funding from the European institutions. But yes, that's perfectly possible.
Yes, indeed, Julien. It's what we saw also in all proposals involving Swiss associated partners. So this is a possibility indeed. And in this case, since they are using their own external funding, we would have associated partners recruiting, but since they are not recruiting using EU funds, it's something that is perfectly fine. And that will be, of course, assessed and evaluated accordingly by the expert evaluators. So the next question is the following. So can scientists at an early stage of their career, I think we had already replied to a very similar one, so I think we can go to the next question. So it's about joint doctorates. Is it possible to ask for a project of 60 months, even if some of the DN fellowships last 36 months? Who would like to answer this one? Sohail? Yes?
Yes, it's possible. Yes, it's possible. So I think the consortium divides the duration or decides on the duration of each fellowship in there. So the 48-month fellowship is a maximum. So it is possible, yeah.
Yes, indeed. You have the full flexibility on this, and you can have a mixed duration of fellowship in one single joint doctorate. So this is really up to you. Then just keep in mind that the overall coherence of your proposal will be assessed by the expert evaluators. Yes, Julia?
Maybe just to add that, yes, you can do it, but just be mindful that the final payment of your project would be at month 60 if you have a 60-month duration project. So if your fellows have stopped working for your project, 1 year and a half before, then you would get the payment to reimburse you from the salaries you gave to the fellows 18 months later. So just to keep that in mind.
Yes.
It would be important.
Yes, indeed, Julien. Yes, yes. In the case where all the fellows would have a 36 months contract, indeed. Let's move now to the next questions. One of the 2024 changes is challenges to the chosen methodology has been moved from section 1.2 to section 3.1. This should be included in table 3.1, or do we need to add text outside table 3.1? I think this one is really specific, but Julien, in case you want to say something about it?
Yes, sure. So basically, the rationale for this change is to have all the risks, so scientific, technical implementation risks, all of those risks in the same section, in the implementation section 3.1. So this is the reason why this was completely moved there. In that case, yes, you have to fill in the table, but I mean, it's up to you whether you think that you provide sufficient information just filling in the table, or if you need to expand a little bit. And now that all of that is moved to section 3.1, you can, and I would probably encourage you to have a few sentences if you need to further explain, maybe if a risk is a bit harder to explain, or if the contingency plan is a bit longer to explain, it doesn't fit in the table, I encourage you to write a few sentences about that in the section 3.1.
Thanks a lot, Julien. The next question is, can a PhD candidate hosted by one EU beneficiary be enrolled in a university in a different EU country? Michaela?
Yes. So it is absolutely possible that one PhD candidate hosted in one EU country be enrolled in a university in a different EU country. That's not a problem at all.
Thanks a lot, Michaela. Let's move to the next question. If the application is for a DN joint doctorate, all the candidates will need to be enrolled in a joint double PhD, or some of them can have a regular PhD. I think we partially replied to this one during the presentation, but Sohail, do you want
Yes,
to
I mean, I think Julien mentioned it that, no, I mean, all the doctoral candidates within this network, they have to do either joint or double or multiple degrees.
Thanks a lot. The next one is there a penalty associated with having fewer than 15 projects? Julien?
I can reply to that. Absolutely not. So, I mean, considering there is 36 months per project, 15 is the maximum number of projects you can do. But the number of projects has to be consistent with the overall research objectives you have at the level of the overall project, has to make sense with what you propose. So it's not the more the better, it's not the fewer the better, it's really, it has to be according to the scope of the research project that you're proposing. So it's absolutely no penalty associated with less than 15 projects or fellows.
Maybe just to complement, based on what we received also in the past and what are the projects selected for funding, we have a mixed and a variety of different project sizes. So very small projects recruiting 4, 6 fellows, and a bigger project with 15 fellows and sometimes even more with additional funding by Swiss participants, for example. So it's really up to you, and it will be assessed according to what you propose and what is coherent also in light of what you propose. The next question is the following one. So what does enrollment to PhD mean? Does it mean enrollment admission to the university or the admission to the PhD graduate school? I hope the question made sense. So who would like to answer this one?
I can reply to that. Basically, it's whatever is legally required at the place where the fellow is in order to eventually defend and get their doctoral degree. So if in the institution where the fellow is enrolled, that means being admitted to the university and or being admitted to the graduate school, It depends on the case. So whatever is necessary for the fellow to be truly enrolled in order to be able to defend and get their degree.
Maybe, I don't know, but I understood it also. It would not be enough to just be registered and enrolled at the university. They would really need to be enrolled in a PhD graduate school, I would say, a doctoral school. Mm-hmm. So maybe, but it's true that this is something that you should also check internally, but a registration just at the university would not be enough to consider it as a proper enrollment in a PhD program. The next question is about Switzerland. Are they eligible as beneficiaries? I think we also had many answers already to this one, but who would like maybe to say something else about it? So here?
Nothing else. I'm just going to confirm that they can, I mean, as Julien said, like any other non-associated, non-EU third country, there can only be a beneficiary if they can receive exceptional funding because of a contribution that nobody else can provide, be it a certain database or a certain expertise or a geographical situation that would provide, a unique research situation. So this would be an exceptional cases where they can be beneficiaries.
Thanks a lot, Sohail. Indeed, very clear. The next question is, can universities which are not offering doctoral degree programs, for example, universities of applied sciences, can they still apply? Who would like to? Yeah, Michaela?
Yes. So yes, they can actually. They would need to recruit a fellow, and since the enrollment to a PhD is mandatory, they will need to either enroll the PhD in another beneficiary who is entitled to award doctoral degrees, or to an associated partner who is also allowed to offer doctoral degrees, but depending on the situation and the type of action, this beneficiary, if it's an associated partner, will need to be in a member state or in a member state associated country, and a third country. It could be applied in case it's a JD.
Thanks a lot for this very complete answer, Michaela. Let's now have another question. If I understand well, only beneficiaries have to be included in the Part A online form, so no need of PIC from partner organization. Is that correct? Maybe Julien, you can give us some more information about that.
Yes, unfortunately that is not correct. Yeah. So beneficiaries and associated partners, they all need to be included in Part A. They all need a PIC. So a PIC is the, what's the acronym?
Participant Identification Code.
Yes, thank you, Audrey. So you need to be validated by our services. Now, don't be afraid, because when you register, you first get a temporary PIC immediately, and this is enough for you to participate. You don't need to be fully validated yet to be part of a proposal. Then if the proposal is turned into a project, then you will need to be fully validated. But this doesn't mean that you need to wait for a few weeks, or you need time and wait to be validated to participate. You just need to get a temporary PIC. But you need it, and you need to be in Part A.
Just maybe to clarify that the validation of a PIC is mandatory for beneficiaries only. As associated partner, you don't need to have a validated PIC even afterwards. Let's move on now to the next question. We have a tentative consortium composition, and one of the scientifically rather essential partners is a university from Israel. Is there a code of conduct, formal or informal, from the EU towards including banning such partners? So, hi?
Yeah, maybe I'll take this one. So the legal basis of the scientific collaboration between the EU and Israel is the association agreement of Horizon Europe, which the EU is not envisaging suspending this collaboration at institutional or researcher level, which means that in this particular question, it is the consortium members that they have to agree together on how to set up the consortium, of course, with each consortium member following the position and guidance of the organization they belong to.
Very clear. Thanks a lot for this important clarification, Sohail. The next question is about industrial doctorates. Can non-academic partners who are not recruiting be inserted as zero-budget beneficiaries? Who would like to answer? Julien?
I can reply to that. So no, it's not possible. So if an entity is not recruiting, they cannot be beneficiaries. This is an eligibility criterion, so they cannot be beneficiaries, but they can be associated partners. Then you would include them as associated partner, and as associated partners, the forms doesn't allow you to have a budget for them, which makes sense because they should not recruit. So no, they cannot be zero budget beneficiaries. Is not a concept that we have.
Thanks a lot, Julien. The next question is, would there be a list of low-income countries that would be eligible as beneficiaries? Michaela?
Yes, there is a list of low-income countries. As Julien mentioned before, you have to check the general annexes of the work program. You will find the list there, and all the documents have been published on the call page. And yes, that's it.
Yes, you have the full list of eligible participants and countries indeed. Thanks a lot. So the next question is, are institutions from following countries with relevant cooperations acceptable for being beneficiaries or partners, welcoming PhD students for a few months and training for all? Australia, Canada, China, Morocco, UK, and USA. Who would like to take this one?
Maybe I'll take it. These are many questions.
Yes.
For question A, can they be beneficiaries? So first of all, the ones that are member states or associated countries can be beneficiaries. And in this list that I see in the question, this is the UK. Again, as we mentioned before in the past question of Switzerland, for any country that is not normally eligible for funding, they can have exceptional funding as beneficiaries if they are judged essential for the project. So that's part of the question. Now, partners, I think partners maybe in this context, they mean associated to the consortium, since question A was about beneficiaries. So yes, of course, institutions from all the countries mentioned can be associated partners, and in all cases about welcoming PhD students for a few months and training for all. Again, this is possible for all of them in the format of secondments.
Indeed, thank you.
Yeah.
Sohail, maybe to complement that, in this list, Morocco could actually also receive funding. They are among the low-income third countries that are about to be associated also to Horizon Europe, but not yet signed, and they can indeed also participate as beneficiaries. The next question is about beneficiary must recruit at least one doctoral candidate. So is recruiting equivalent to delivering a PhD degree? Who would like to take this one?
I can take it.
Yes, Michaela?
So no, it's actually two different things. So what is very important is once you recruit a doctoral candidate, is that this doctoral candidate is recruited under an employment contract or other direct contract. And at the same time, there is a mandatory obligation to enroll the candidate in a PhD degree. So actually there are two different things which are very important to differentiate. So please bear in mind that we want to offer all our doctoral candidates an employment contract with full social security coverage, pension rights, etc. And this is beneficial for them.
Thanks a lot, Michaela. So let's go now to the next question. what if a participant does not have a gender equality plan in place before the call deadline? Does it have an impact on the evaluation? Who would like to answer this one? Or maybe I can take this one. Indeed, we now request all our beneficiaries from higher education establishment, research organization, to have a gender equality plan in place before the grant agreement signature. But we don't request it before the call deadline. So meaning that we highly encourage you to have it already at proposal stage, because sometimes it can take a while to get to have it in place. But it's something that we don't check necessarily at proposal stage. This is something that we check and make sure to have during the grant agreement preparation phase, before the grant agreement signature. And it does not have an impact on the evaluation. The next question is, do the beneficiaries have to correspond to the main panel? For example, if I apply in math, do the beneficiaries have to be math departments? Who would like to answer this one? Julien?
Yes, I could. So, I hope I don't misunderstand the question, but there's no requirement that if you're in the math panel, you have to have all the beneficiaries from the math department. You will see actually when you will submit your proposal, so you have to select a panel, and then you have to select a few keywords. So keywords from the MSCA list of keywords, or we call them descriptors sometimes. And the first keyword that you have to choose has to belong to the panel to which you submit your proposal. But then you can select up to 12 keywords, I think, a minimum 3. But you can select keywords from different panels. So there's an element of inter or multidisciplinarity that is embedded in the doctoral networks. So it's perfectly possible that you apply in math, but maybe you have some interdisciplinarity, meaning that some beneficiaries are not from the mathematic world. Maybe they are from different disciplines. What you should know as well is that we don't have the panels siloed neither, meaning that all the experts that we have, they are not, only belonging to one panel, because some of them also have multidisciplinary background or interdisciplinary background. So the choice of the panel, of course, has to reflect what you're doing. You're not going to submit it in a panel that has nothing to do with the background of your proposal. But be aware that to a very large extent, the experts are shared between the different panels, exactly to account for this this interdisciplinarity that is very much fostered, right, Soil, in the Marie Skłodowska-Curie action scheme.
Thanks a lot, Julien. Just to clarify that for the keywords that you can select from the MSCA list at proposal stage in the submission form, I think it's up to 5. But of course, you can complement with 3 keywords, and there you have you should be able to go even up to more to 12 keywords. So it's completely free, and you can insert any other keywords that may help us as well in order to cover the proper expertise for your proposal. So the next question, if the travel training funds of a PhD student have not been spent after the 3 years, can the remaining money be used to extend the contract of the fellow? Michaela?
Yes, so it is true that in case you have unused institutional funds, they can be used in order to extend the contract of the fellow. But what you have to bear in mind is that the institutional costs are there in order to allow you to implement the action as it was foreseen. So you have to first ensure that all the tasks and all what you had planned to do with your project has been done. And indeed, if you have a leftover, you can organize additional trainings, you can extend the contract of the fellows, and we are not deemed to accept to actually give you an authorization to do it. It will be up to you, and we will assess it at the end of the project.
Thanks a lot, Michaela. The next question is about a clarification more. So could you please clarify what you said earlier about the inclusion of beneficiaries from low-income countries, potentially lowering the overall evaluation score? How and why would that reduce the overall score? I refer to Julien,
No, I
maybe, or?
No.
Well, I don't know who would have said that since I did the main presentation. Maybe it refers to me. I can clarify that the inclusion of beneficiaries from low-income countries does not have any effect on the evaluation score at all. I mean, the scores are based on the evaluation of each individual criteria and to whether you responded, whether your proposal matches the evaluation criteria. So it doesn't matter which country, low income, middle income, high income, it doesn't matter. It does not impact the evaluation score at all.
Okay, maybe Michaela wants to complement because I think she was the one maybe referring to something linked to it.
Yes, it's something linked to it. So if I understand, maybe there was a misunderstanding in what I said. There was one frequently asked question which asked whether if there is actually a beneficiary participating from a low-income country which is eligible for funding, if this low-income beneficiary can enroll the PhD in this country. And we said that for a GD it would be possible, but it would not be possible for a standard DN and for an ID. And if a proposal is submitted, for example, for a standard DN or for industrial doctorate with a beneficiary from a low-income country who has enrolled his candidate in a PhD program in this country, well, this might be penalized during the evaluation. But it doesn't mean that the proposal would be completely rejected. It will be a slight penalization. If the proposal is excellent, it can actually reach the main list. It could be funded, and we would correct this during the grant agreement preparation in order to comply with all the rules.
Very clear. Thanks a lot, Michaela. So the next question, can a beneficiary recruit a doctoral candidate for only a part of the project with split recruitment, for example, 12 months out of the 36 months? Who would like to take this one? Julien?
So yes, it is possible. I mean, the rule says that it has to be minimum 3 and maximum 36 months. So 12 months is between these two boundaries, so you can do it, absolutely.
Indeed. Thank you, Julien. The next question, is there any age restriction while recruiting the doctoral candidate? Sohail, do you want to reply to this one?
Yeah, no.
Okay.
Yeah,
then.
there is no age restriction.
Yes, indeed, there is no age restriction for doctoral network candidates. The next question is about industrial doctorates. Is it possible to have only academic beneficiaries recruiting all fellows? Michaela, yes?
Okay, so it's actually possible to have only academic beneficiaries recruiting all fellows, but what you will need to do, because you have a 50% exposure to the non-academic sector, which is a cost eligibility criterion, so you will have to add non-academic associated partners to whom you will be able to send your doctoral candidate in order to give them this 50% exposure to the non-academic sector.
Indeed, thank you, Michaela. And this is one of the big incentives that was put in place for industrial doctorates since the 2022 call, and which gives a lot of flexibility for the non-academic participants. So the next question is about the 40% rule. Does it take into account the country correction coefficients? And I think, Julien, maybe you could clarify again what you said earlier.
Yes, clearly, so the 40% rule is about the budget. So it's not about the number of fellows or the number of units, it's about the budget. So it does take into account the country correction coefficient. So yes, it might be that 40% of the fellows in a country that are high country correction coefficient might be too much because you would go above the 40% in the budget. And vice versa, if it's a low country correction coefficient, maybe 40% of fellows would be less than 40% of the budget. So yes, take a look at the budget and not the number of people.
Thanks a lot. And you have anyway a warning in the submission form in case you go over this limit. The next question is about if we are a beneficiary from a low-income third country, what correction rate do we apply to the salaries? So I suppose the country correction coefficient. Does the fellow still need to be enrolled in an EU university? Michaela, I think it's very linked to the question that we had before. Do you want to answer?
Yes, I can reply to that. So you will see that in the work program, we also have, in addition to the country correction coefficients of member states and associated countries, we also have the rates which are applicable to low-income third countries. So you can see there how to adjust the salary of your fellow. With regards to the second question, which was linked to what was said before, so in case you are a standard doctoral network project, or if you're an industrial doctorate, then you will have to enroll your fellow in an EU university or in a university in an associated country. But if it is a joint doctorate, you will be able to enroll your fellow in the third country and also in an EU or associated country university.
Thanks a lot, Michaela, for this complete answer. Just to mention one case that we had also in the past, if you don't find the country correction coefficient in the system, it could happen. Also, normally we should cover most of the countries participating in our program. You could also contact the Research Inquiry Service, and then we will try also to find a solution. But in general, we try to have all possible country correction coefficients in the system already. So the next question is about joint doctorates. Do all candidates have to have the same type of joint or double or multiple, or can this vary from fellow to fellow, some double, some joint? Maybe I can reply to this one. So as Julien mentioned earlier during his presentation, in joint doctorates, you can have different types of joint, double or multiple degree, and there is no preferences. So just be aware that the evaluators are really briefed on the fact that we don't give any preferences to a joint, not to a double or multiple, as long as all fellows involved in the project are enrolled either in a joint or double or multiple degree. So it's really up to you as a consortium to decide on this setup. The next question, so can African junior researchers apply to Marie Skłodowska-Curie Action funded PhD programs? Who would like to take this one? Yes, Sohail? Or yes?
I mean, yes, they can, as long as they don't hold a PhD. Yes.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
It's open to any researchers from anywhere in the world. The next question is about institutions like GRC or some relevant departments of international organizations such as OECD, ILO, or even UN. Can they be partners? I suppose associated partners. Sohail?
Yes, I mean, I answered sufficiently on the GRC before, and also the international organizations can apply. Yeah, can participate.
Indeed, as associated partners. The next question is about Chinese university participation. Can they apply, and in which capacity? Who would like to take this question? Julien?
Yes, so if my memory serves well, I think China is not part of the low to middle income third countries from the list in general annexes to the work program. So they can apply, but they normally should not receive funding except if exceptional funding is granted because they have access to, they are really essential and provide something that nobody else can provide. So they can apply as associated partners for sure. They could apply as beneficiary, but there is a chance that they would not get funded following if the evaluators don't think that the university deserves exceptional funding from us, then they would need to be transferred from beneficiary to associated partners. But they can apply, yes.
Thanks a lot, Julien. So the next question is about Part B. There is a table with supervisors that should be included. Is a co-supervisor a person of the own institute or the network? All supervisors should be included in that table. So who would like to answer this one? Maybe Julien, who is expert in the template?
I could answer that. So I will start from the end. So yes, all supervisors and co-supervisors have to be included in that table. Now, whether the co-supervisor has to be a person from the same institute or from somewhere else in the network, that's totally up to you. That's totally up to you to decide. Most of the time, the co-supervisors we find that are a person from another institute, from the network, because the idea is also to have, first to have a different angle on things. So if it's someone from a different institute, maybe they see things a bit differently. And it's also a way to have, another ear in case, sometimes things don't happen so well with the supervisor. And it's good to have a co-supervisor in order to smooth things out with the main supervisor. So most of the time it's somebody from elsewhere in the network, but there is nothing that prevents you from having a co-supervisor from the same institute.
Thanks a lot, Julien. Very clear. So now let's move on to the next question. In case of DN joint doctorates, if some beneficiaries have the PhD program in 3 years and others in 4 years, can they all ask for 48 months fellowship? After 3 years, when the first CSRs get the PhD, those fellowships have to be stopped. Who would like to take this one? Michaela?
I can try.
Yes.
So in case it is an incentive. So in a JD, in a joint doctorate, you can indeed give fellows a fellowship of 48 months. And even if this the fellowship, the enrollment to a PhD and the PhD program is 3 years, but then you will need to actually adapt your program because the fellow will get 48 months, and you will need to see what the fellow will do after the 3 years, where the fellow will have gotten the PhD. So the fellowship will not be stopped because we will actually fund it, but it will be up to you to prove us what is the added value of having a fellowship of 48 months when actually the PhD program is only 36. So just bear in mind all those elements when you think of your proposal, and submit actually what is best actually for the fellows and for the project itself.
Yes, and indeed, and this will be also up to the expert evaluator to assess this. The next question about associated partners. So can they claim costs, or is it possible to reimburse associated partners from beneficiary unit costs? Thank you. Who would like to answer this one? Michaela? Yes.
Yes, so as Julien repeated before, associated partners cannot claim any cost. This is not possible. But, what you could envisage is that you have a bilateral agreement with your associated partners, and because they will be implemented part of the action, so they will be providing trainings, they will be hosting doctoral candidates during secondments, so you could actually provide in your consortium agreement that part of the budget, part of the institutional contributions will be giving to the associated partners who are helping implementing the project. So this is up to you to define, and to also define the reimbursement rates. And we, as a funding body, will not be included in this redistribution of funds. So this is going to be up to you to decide, and of course, bearing in mind the best way possible to implement the project.
Thank you, Michaela. So the next question, is it possible to submit a DNID of 54 months duration to accommodate for PhD thesis of 4 years in some countries, namely the Netherlands, Belgium, etc., being aware that only 36 months of this PhD thesis will be funded by the project? Julien?
Yes, so a short answer is it is not possible to submit a DNID of 54 months. The maximum is 48 months. Now, reading between the lines, maybe I think there might be a confusion, maybe not, but just to be sure, it's not mandatory that the fellows defend their PhD within the lifetime of the project. So if some fellows need 4 years of PhD and they defend their PhD thesis after the end of the doctoral network, it's fine. It's the requirement, the mandatory requirement is that they are enrolled in a PhD, not that they defend within the lifetime of the project.
Indeed, Julien, thanks a lot. So we have another question. Is there any difference in the Part B proposal text between joint doctorates and standard doctoral networks? Julien?
So first I was tempted to say no. So there's absolutely no difference, except that for JDs, you need to submit the letters of pre-agreement.
Indeed.
Apart from that, there's absolutely no difference between any of the implementation mode. The Part B proposal template is exactly the same.
Exactly. Thanks a lot, Julien. The next question is, what is the difference between associated partner and associated partner linked to a beneficiary? Who would like to answer this one? Michaela? Yeah.
Okay, I can try. So, so we have associated partners who can participate, and Julien explained before what is the role and how are they defined. And then you also have associated partners linked to a beneficiary. And what we mean by linked to a beneficiary is that there is a capital or legal link between the beneficiary and this associated partner, which was established actually before, for example, the proposal was submitted, and was not created, this legal link, for the implementation of the action. And so it is really a legal status which is established beforehand. And in terms of role in the project is very similar to what an associated partner can do. There's no difference. But because there is this legal link, you have to declare this legal link to us so that we are aware. And yes, and one last thing, but this is more in terms of project implementation. We will have to verify during project implementation who is actually, when there are two entities with a capital link, who is actually recruiting, and it's the recruiting institution that will need to be added as a beneficiary.
Thanks a lot, Michaela. Maybe just to give an example that we have very often in France, for example, with joint research unit, where you could have CNRS recruiting as beneficiary and linked then to an associated partner to Sorbonne University in Paris, for example. The next question now is, could the coordination of a consortium under an MSCA DN industrial doctorates be carried out by an academic sector entity or even a non-academic sector entity such as an SME? Who would like to take this one? I can take this one. For industrial doctorates and for any other modalities, the coordination role of a beneficiary is not linked to its academic or non-academic status, and of course a non-academic sector entity such as an SME can indeed be coordinator of a consortium, either a standard doctoral network, so joint doctorates, or an industrial doctorates. The only thing is that for non-academic sector and SMEs or more risky entities, we may have several checks in place during the grant agreement preparation just to verify that you're financially viable and stable in order to be able to coordinate the action throughout the project implementation. So the next question is, what does increase the doctoral network joint doctorate's maximum duration of fellowship to 4 years and of project of 5 years mean? Is the project of the fellowship that is more important in the proposal? How is it possible to have a different duration for both? Who would like to clarify? Julien?
I could take this one. So you will notice that there's a 1 year difference between the duration of the fellowship and the duration of the project. So this is the case for JD. This is also the case for the other two modes. So you have 36 months and then the project is 48 months. Now the main reason for that is that when your project will start and then you will recruit the fellows and they will start later during the project. So that means that you have basically a slack of 12 months to perform the recruitment of the fellows. They have to undergo mobility, so they probably cannot move from one country to the other just within 1 week. So you need to organize the recruitment, they need to come, they need to sign their employment contract, they need to start their project. These things take time. So that's why you have a 12-month extra in order to do all that. Because obviously, we talked about open, transparent, fair recruitment. You should not know now which fellows you're going to recruit for the project if it is funded. It has to be completely open and transparent, and you should start that, after you know your project is granted, obviously, but you should not know now who you want to recruit later.
Maybe just to complement and give you examples based on what we see also in other projects. Usually the recruitment of the fellows start around month 6 of the project, but don't underestimate the time to recruit all fellows. And many of them have delays in their recruitment process, especially when you have visa issues. Don't underestimate the time and all administrative issues that you could encounter before recruiting all fellows in your consortium. The next question, is it possible to have a consortium with 3 EU member states and 1 third country? So who would like to answer this one? So here, yes?
Yes, it's possible.
Yes, it's possible. Indeed, for the third country, just keep in mind that in case they are not listed among the low-income third countries who can receive directly EU funding, then they may participate as beneficiary in case they receive exceptional funding. Otherwise, they will have to participate with their own fund as associated partner. The next question is about the work program, which mentions the possibility to provide fixed fellowships if employment contract cannot be provided by internal rules or of international organization. However, the template of the budget only provides the option with full amount of living allowance. So how to do that and to reflect that? Who would like to take this one?
I can.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay.
So actually it's 2 different things. So when you will be submitting your proposal, you will have to define your budget, and we will actually calculate for you the full amount of the living allowance. And then, like Audrey said, during the implementation of the project, you will be asked to recruit a number of doctoral candidates. And what we ask is that you give your fellows direct employment contract, and if it's actually not possible because of the not internal rules but mostly because of national rules, then you can actually give them a fixed amount fellowship. And then what you need to bear in mind is that you will need to submit a mobility declaration, and if we accept that you give the fellow a fixed amount fellowship, the living allowance will be half automatically into. So it's actually two different processes which will happen.
Thanks a lot, Michaela. The next question is about how shall we select descriptors and add free keywords in a proposal, and is it okay if we select all descriptors from the same core discipline? Julien?
Yes, so indeed we started to touch a bit about on the descriptors a bit earlier. Basically when you submit your proposal, you have to select a panel, and then you have to select up to 5 keywords with minimum 3. And the only rule is that the first descriptor has to be from the scientific panel in which you submitted your proposal. Then the others can be from different panels. So depending on the scope of your proposal, on what it is you propose to do, you can have descriptors. It has to be coherent with what you propose. So it can be all descriptors from the same core discipline, or it can be from different panels. We only restrict the first descriptor, offering the possibility to have some interdisciplinarity within the project. But if it's not the case, you could have all the descriptors from the same panel. That's not a problem.
Thanks a lot, Julien. So we are almost at the end of this session, so we will take very few more questions. All the questions that we could not answer today in live, of course, we will make sure to reply in writing to the most frequent ones. Maybe there is apparently a very popular one on AI aspects in the excellence section that we could take. If Julien, you would like to take it. So not the one that we see now, but the other one on the AI aspects in excellence session. Yes. Thank you. So could you give some tips on how to best address the AI aspects in the excellence section? Last year we received several comments in different evaluation summary reports, and it was often evaluated as a weakness. So maybe we could give some few clarifications.
Yes, indeed. So for the AI, there are a few explanations in the proposal template on AI. And basically, if you develop or use AI and it has an impact, a real-world impact, this is a bit the sense of the description in the proposal template, then you have to explain how your proposed AI system is technically robust. Okay, and this can be assessed by the evaluators in the excellence section and can be evaluated as a weakness if you did not explain enough or justify enough how your envisaged system would be technically robust and basically not lead to adverse effects in a real life scenario. I mean, I simplify a bit, but that's basically the message here. So whenever you develop AI, you have to explain and convince the evaluators of the technical robustness or producibility of the systems that you will propose. This is the main idea.
Thanks a lot, Julien. And we also encourage you to go through the proposal templates where we have a few additional information and explanation about it, how it should be included also under methodology in the excellence criterion. And you also have a link to artificial intelligence guidelines as well in the proposal template and in the funding and tenders portal in the call page. So the next question is about if I resubmit a project, will there be any sort of memory from last year's selection results, especially regarding projects that were on the reserve list? Who would like to take this one? Yes, Julien?
I could take this one. It's like the recruitment that we ask you to do. We evaluate the proposal in an open, fair, transparent way, and we evaluate proposals as they are, as a self-standing proposal. So there is no memory from last year's selection results. It doesn't give any advantage or disadvantage if your proposal was on the reserve list the year before. So there is no memory from the previous years.
Yes, indeed, Julien. Each evaluation exercise is independent. So we will take now the last question for today. So how to find partners, either a partners database or similar? Anyone? I can also take this one. Indeed, we have a partner search database tool available on the Funding and Tenders portal. You have access to it. You go to the call page, but you go to the funding opportunities section, and there you will also have access to how to find partners. So it's quite a useful tool. I very much encourage you to use it in case you're looking for partners in your proposal. So now let me thank you again for all these questions. We have tried to reply to many of them, maybe not all of them today, sorry for that, but as I said before, we will try to reply in writing to the most frequent ones and try to merge maybe redundant questions. So you will get the link to these answers on the event platform together with all the presentation that you saw this morning. The link to this event platform is also already available on the Funding and Tenders portal on the call page. You also have it on the Slido session of today. Then I would like to thank you, all of you again, for your very active participation through Slido and also your full attendance to this session. A big thank you also to all my colleagues here together with me for their help and support in answering all your questions and for all the presentation, as well as all the colleagues also involved behind the screen to help us organize this event. So a big thanks as well. And let me maybe finish with 5 final tips that and takeaway messages that you can take with you before closing this session. So 5 very important messages. So first of all, read the guidance. As Julien mentioned, it's very important that you read all material and guidance available to you in order to prepare your proposal. The second one is to follow the templates. Please really follow the templates because in case you don't follow it, you may be penalized during the evaluation by the expert evaluators, and you should address all aspects that are in the templates as well. The third tip is about write clearly, as Julien already mentioned. So think like an evaluator and write for the evaluator. So it's very important that they understand what you want to say in your proposal. The fourth one is submit your proposal on time. So this is a very crucial one, because if you don't submit it on time, unfortunately, we will not be able to accept your proposal nor to evaluate it. And the last one, the fifth one, which is also important, please perform a final check of what you have submitted before the call deadline to avoid any unfortunate mistakes or bad surprises afterwards. So with this, I would like to thank you again and to wish you all the best. Thanks.